If you use a VPN to stream or download content, you're probably used to long wait times, lots of loading and buffering. Unless you use private internet access, the only VPN set up for streaming and downloading 4K content without any lag. A VPN hides your IP address, allowing you to access content not available in your region, letting you anonymize your IP address so governments and big tech can't track what you do online. And you can protect unlimited devices with just one account. Private internet access is giving my audience 83% off, which is just $203 a month, plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is down below. If you snore at night or you get hot when you sleep, check out our sponsor, 8 Sleep, who just released the Pod 4 Ultra. It can cool your bed down to 20 degrees below the room temperature so you get better sleep, or it can heat your bed up, and it can sense when you're snoring and lift your head so you can breathe better. It's truly amazing. I use an 8 Sleep pod every night. Once you try it, you'll understand how big of a difference it makes for sleep. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman and use code Pacman for $350 off. The link is in the description. Welcome to the show. Hope you had a good long weekend. If you had one, I wish I could come back to you with great news, but I'm not starting with positive news today. And one of the things I promised you is that I will always tell you things as I see them. You can disagree with my conclusions. You can say I'm leaving out this or that, and here is why I should have a different conclusion. But I will always tell you where I am seeing things. And where I am seeing things right now is that for the first time in a long time, really since Kamala Harris became the nominee, if you look at battleground state polling and assign states to the current leader, Donald Trump would have enough votes to secure the presidency. I'm going to talk you through it. Now, I know that there are many of you who say, you know, David, I love your facial hair. I think your turtlenecks are great, but I don't like it when you give me negative information. Well, we're going to have to deal with it because that's where we are. Let me tell you first what doesn't so much matter. It is true that if we look at the national polling, Kamala Harris's lead is as small as it has been in 5 weeks. Kamala Harris's national polling lead had swelled to 2. Maybe even 2.1, 2.2. It's now down to 1.4, losing 30 or 40% of that lead. Now, you would rightly say, David, sir, we don't have a national popular vote. We have an electoral college, to which I say, yes, sir or ma'am, you are absolutely correct. Let's look at where we are now as far as the battleground states. As of today, Donald Trump has taken a lead in Arizona, a state that was won by Joe Biden in 2020. As of today, Donald Trump leads Nevada, a state won by Joe Biden in 2020. Kamala Harris holds a lead in Wisconsin. Donald Trump has taken a lead in Michigan, another state won by Joe Biden in 2020. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump currently is indeed leading, even though that was a state won by Joe Biden. North Carolina, a state Trump won, he is holding a lead, although it is a small lead. And in Georgia, a state won by Joe Biden, Donald Trump is indeed leading. Where does this put us in terms of the Electoral College? Well, let's take a look at exactly that. Here is the electoral map. We start with the map based on 2020 results, and then we simply flip the states that, according to polling today, Donald Trump leads in. That means we flip Arizona. That means we flip Nevada to Trump. Trump has a lead in Michigan, Trump has a lead in Pennsylvania, and Trump has a lead in Georgia. If the current battleground state polling were to reflect the eventual winner in November, Donald Trump would win a second non-consecutive term with 302 electoral votes, whereas Kamala Harris would be left with only 236. Now, I'm not going to go through here and go through every scenario. Well, if Harris flips this one, but not that one. We're not going to do that. We're 2.5 weeks away. The point here is that before, I would say to you, it's looking tighter than 2020. But if the current battleground state polling holds, Harris has Pennsylvania and she has Michigan, and she mostly has Nevada. That would give her a win, but it would be a slightly smaller margin of victory than Joe Biden had. As of today, based on the battleground state polling averages, Kamala Harris would lose and Donald Trump would win. Now, let me give you the counterpoint that I know many of you are thinking of, and many of you have sent me the headlines. The counterpoint are these headlines that there are fake right-wing polls being used, and these are skewing the data. There are two parts to that, and I want to explain the two parts. Number one, are there fake right-wing polls that are being generated by MAGA-affiliated pollsters? Yes, there are. However, the Real Clear Politics average that I just showed you does not include those. It is true that Rasmussen is part of the Real Clear Politics average, but Rasmussen, as a right-leaning pollster, was part of the average in 2020 and has been for a long time. That's not new. There are some right-wing pollsters, low-quality pollsters. They are generating polls, and they are the polls that Donald Trump often posts. When I looked at what's included in the Arizona average, what's included in the Pennsylvania average, and so on, I did not see that these averages are dramatically different based on the pollsters that are included. Now, let me give you the counterpoint. The counterpoint is that if you look at the 538 battleground averages rather than the RCP battleground averages, the 538 averages look slightly better for Kamala Harris. And that is also true. The difference is less than 1 point. The counterpoint is, David, many of these states are expected to come down to 1 point or less. Therefore, that 1 point difference is where the election rests. And I would say to you, you are absolutely correct. You figured it out. This election is likely to be so close that it will come down to sub 1 percentage point margins in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. And the only conclusion we can come to once we acknowledge this is probably down to single points in 3 to 5 states is we've got to vote. I know it's cliche. I know it's repetitive. It's the truth. If you look at RCP versus 538 and you say, wow, it looks like there is a very small difference here that is going to be the deciding and difference maker, I should get out there and vote. And you would be absolutely correct in that conclusion. Why is Donald Trump continuing to hide his medical records? Well, let's answer that question in a moment. We will start with Kamala Harris doing what every major presidential candidate does. She has released her medical records, and she seems basically to be a very healthy 59, 60-year-old. The New York Times reports, daring Trump, Harris's campaign releases medical information. Vice President Kamala Harris released a letter from her doctor saying that she's in excellent health as her campaign tries to capitalize on the lack of health information shared by her rival. Harris has seasonal allergies. She's mildly nearsighted and has skin hives that she treats with over-the-counter and prescription medication. This is according to Joshua Simmons, the physician to the vice president. Of course, there is a political aspect to this. Your White House doctor, when you're running, is generally going to say you're fine, but the devil is in the details. She has not had diabetes. She has not had high cholesterol, heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, or neurological disorders. The Washington Post also reporting that part of Kamala Harris's medical records release is to create a contrast with Donald Trump. Her doctor said that she, quote, possesses the physical and mental resiliency required to successfully execute the duties of the presidency. Now, Kamala Harris is also going directly after Trump, saying, I've released my stuff. Why won't he release his? And we're going to look at a couple of clips of that. I do think it's relevant to mention that forget about seeing Trump's full medical records. We haven't even seen Donald Trump's specific medical record from when he was, quote, shot in the ear. We still haven't seen that. We heard from Doc Ronnie his opinion of Trump's cut when he went up to dress it in a hotel room before the RNC. That's all we've gotten. So there is a very notable lack of transparency here. Here is Kamala Harris saying, I've released mine. Why won't he show us his?
So today I records, as has, I believe, every candidate for president of the United States except Donald Trump in this election cycle. And it's just a further example of his lack of transparency, that on top of his unwillingness to debate again, his unwillingness to do an interview with 60 Minutes, which again is part of the norm of what anyone running for president of the United States does. And I think that it's obvious that his team, at least, does not want the American people to see everything about who he is. And you put that on top of even the most recent reports of General Milley, one of the people who worked the closest with Donald Trump, referring to him as being unstable. And it is clear to me that he and his team do not want the American people to really see what it is that he is doing and whether or not he actually is fit to do the job of being president of the United States.
I think that this is a smart gambit, but I don't think it's going to make a whole hell of a lot of difference. And of course, Kamala Harris is completely correct. Trump said back in 2015, oh, yeah, I'll show you my taxes if, when, and then all of these different things happen. He never did. Through various leaks and disclosures, we got some of Donald Trump's taxes, but he's still not done it. And of course, with the medical record, it's very much the same thing. We know from looking at Trump that he's obese. We know that he has skin issues. I believe that there were some disclosures years ago about, I thought maybe cholesterol, but that's easily medicated. But this is a much older Trump, and we don't have his medical record. And Kamala Harris continuing to harp on this, including during an interview.
Let's fast forward to right now. His staff won't let him do a 60 Minutes interview. Every president for the last half century has done one, anyone who's running for president. Everyone has done it, except Donald Trump. He will not debate me again. I put out my medical records. He won't put out his medical records. And you have to ask, why is his staff doing that? And it may be because they think he's just not ready and unfit and unstable and should not have that level of transparency for the American people. There's a real choice in this election.
Yeah, this is a stark contrast that is now in very noticeable relief. Trump stood around while music played 39 minutes at a town hall event yesterday rather than take questions. He looked disoriented and confused. Kamala Harris seems completely with it, with a level of energy we've not seen from Trump, even when we suspected he was on uppers for a very long time. There is no coincidence here. If the Trump campaign believed that publishing his medical record would help, they would do it because their interest is whatever is best for Trump and whatever is going to get him elected. So this is not about Hillary Parkinson's conspiracy theories. It's Trump doesn't look healthy. He doesn't sound healthy. He's clearly deteriorated from where he was 9 years ago. And if there was a great, clean medical record to be released, they would do it. Now, many of you might come back and say, David, why don't they just release a bogus medical record that says that he's super healthy? You could fake a medical record, but you have to understand that a medical record is very different than just a letter from Doc Ronnie or whoever. You can put together a letter saying, I've examined the former president and he's great, he's energetic, he's on the campaign trail, and he's fit to serve. The medical record, which would include routine lab work of all different kinds, any testing that Trump has undergone, if there are concerning aspects to that, you now have to doctor and manipulate every single one of those things. And I don't know that they would be unwilling to do it, but it's certainly much more involved than simply write a letter and say that he looks and sounds great and everything's good. So more lack of transparency from Trump, nicely done by Kamala Harris. I don't think in the end it's going to make a huge difference. I always get hot when I sleep. It's plagued me my whole life, but I found the solution, and it is 8 Sleep. Our sponsor, 8 Sleep, has released the newest model of the Pod, the incredible device that fits right over your mattress like a fitted sheet. It can cool down your bed to just 20 degrees below the room temperature, or it can heat your bed up, which can be useful in the winter or for muscle relaxation. I keep mine on the cold setting. It is a great feeling to sleep with one of these. I just wake up more refreshed, and science has shown that lowering your body temperature at night can let you sleep better and feel better the next day. And 8 Sleep's new model, the Pod 4 Ultra, has a revolutionary new feature. It can detect when you are snoring and lift your head so that you can breathe better. Pod 4 Ultra also introduces an adjustable base that fits between your mattress and your bed frame to add reading and sleeping positions. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman. Use code Pacman to get $350 off the Pod 4 Ultra. The link is in the description. The David Pacman Show is an audience-supported program, and I invite you and thank those who have already done it. I invite you to sign up at joinpacman.com. Get a membership. It's quick, it's cheap, it's easy. You'll get extra content every day. We do an extra show called The Bonus Show for our members. And you'll do a little something to counteract the fact that Fox News gets $3 from every cable TV subscriber. That is something that we can all do today. And it really is quite inexpensive. You can also use the coupon code SAVEDEMOCRACY24. At least until November 5th, you can use that coupon code to save about 50-60% off of the cost of a membership at joinpacman.com. I want to dig in a little bit to bogus health claims made by the guy who supposedly would be Donald Trump's health guru, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You know, the framing here, or let me give you the setup. Donald Trump has said that now, thanks to the endorsement of RFK, maybe he would give RFK Jr. some kind of position in his administration, and he's alluded to that might be some kind of health guru. What about the FDA? What about, getting Make America Healthy Again, MAHA, as we like to say in the biz. And the reality is that it's not just on vaccines that many of the things that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says don't make any sense and aren't based in any kind of empirical data. I'm going to give you an example. Jordan Peterson interviewed RFK Jr., and RFK Jr. rattles off about 6 or 7 different health claims, most of which are either partially or completely bogus. I'm going to explain it to you. I know that this will trigger some in the audience who have fallen for some of these, but take a listen and then we're going to discuss it.
And what do you think is driving the obesity epidemic?
It's being driven by poison food, by ultra-processed wheat, sugar, and flour, seed oils, soy, canola, sunflower, and then, wheat and corn, which are all heavily subsidized. 90% of farm subsidies, the crop insurance, etc., go to those 3 categories of soy, corn, and wheat. And those are the feedstocks for all of our processed foods. They turn into sugar. They're all nutrient barren. The original crops were nutrient rich, but the GMO crops are nutrient barren, and they're heavily dependent on pesticides. The reason GMOs are so popular is because they're resistant to pests. The reason they're resistant to pests is because they are resistant to pesticides like glyphosate. So you can saturate the whole landscape with glyphosate from airplanes, and then the only thing that's green is GMO corn, which is Roundup Ready. It's called Roundup Resistance corn. And because of that, it's also very heavily laden with pesticides. Glyphosate is also used as a desiccant, which means it dries out wheat, so it's sprayed on the wheat right at harvest, which means it's going right into the food. And when that began in 1993, that's when you saw all the appearance of all these gluten allergies and celiac disease and wheat allergies that you don't have in Europe. You can eat spaghetti here and you're going to get eczema and all of these stomach complaints. Then you go to Italy and you eat it and you get thin. Mm-hmm. And then the corn is turned into high fructose corn syrup, which is just a formula for making you obese and diabetic.
Okay. So, and there it is, Make America Healthy Again. mahanow.org is being promoted. There are so many claims here that I want to go through. And after I'm done, let me know if this is interesting. If people don't care about this stuff, I don't necessarily have to do segments like this, but I find this interesting. And the amount of disinformation that's being spread here is just crazy. And remember, the umbrella is RFK Jr. really knows his stuff when it comes to this issue, and Trump would hire him and America would somehow be healthy again. So first of all, it's the claim that the obesity epidemic is being driven by poisoned food from ultra-processed wheat, sugar, flour, seed oils, soy, canola, sunflower, wheat and corn, which are all heavily subsidized. Now, I am the first to tell you, ultra-processed foods are clearly not good for you. Limiting refined sugars is a good idea. I do it. The main problem is eating too many calories. That's where the problem really starts. And the seed oil stuff has been widely debunked. Now, it is true. There have been studies that say, if you eat 1,800 calories in a day, you eat it from whole food sources versus you eat it from ultra-processed sources with similar nutritional profiles. There are markers that are better if you get it from whole food sources. There is no doubt about that. I'm with that. But a lot of the specifics here, the seed oils are inflammatory stuff has been widely debunked. What this is really about is nutrient density and portion control and limiting ultra-processed foods. But the demonizing of specific crops, corn in and of itself, yeah, we shouldn't have the refined high fructose corn syrup. But the entire framework that RFK lays out here is just essentially repetitions of TikTok health guru nonsense. Now, the claim that he makes after that is that GMO crops are nutrient barren compared to original crops. That is not true. Genetically modified crops are not inherently less nutrient dense than non-GMO crops. And in fact, there are GMO crops that are specifically engineered to have better nutrient levels. Golden rice is an example, rice fortified with vitamin A. And studies have looked at this, and the nutritional content of GMOs is essentially equivalent to that of conventional crops, and there is no health effect found. That's another aspect to this, the idea that eating GMO foods just by virtue of them being GMO, makes them less healthy in some way. There have been over 2,000 scientific studies and reviews that have found that GMOs are safe for human consumption. Eating GMO food is not inherently unhealthy or dangerous. There's a lot of research here. You'll often hear the detractors cite this study in rats where the rats got cancer. That study is bogus. They used rats that are predisposed to get cancers at higher rates. That's the one thing they point to. There's 2,000 other studies that say by virtue of just of being GMO, that doesn't make foods a problem. Now, number 3 claim is that GMOs are popular because they are resistant to pesticides, and glyphosate is heavily used, and they put the glyphosate on the Roundup Ready corn. This increases your pesticide exposure. It is the case that GMOs like Roundup Ready crops are ready to resist glyphosate. That lets farmers put glyphosate on them without harming the crop. There are questions as to direct health impacts of glyphosate. I'm not here to tell you it's good. I would want to avoid it for sure. But the idea that glyphosate, when used as directed, is definitely harmful is still a question mark. There are studies about high consumption over long terms posing a risk, but you've got to separate glyphosate from GMO. Folks like RFK love to wrap them up together. They are two separate issues. I want to avoid glyphosate. It's different than GMO. He also made the claim that glyphosate is used as a desiccant, in other words, to dry out wheat, and that coincides with the rise of gluten allergies and celiac disease. Both of those things are wrong. Number one, there's no evidence directly linking the use of glyphosate as a desiccant with the rise of gluten allergy and celiac disease. Celiac disease has been increasing. It's believed to be genetic predispositions and also people being more aware, more likely to get tested, more likely to get diagnosed. Now, I have to talk about gluten allergy and gluten sensitivity. And I know there are people in the audience who are going to be upset, okay? It's not clear that non-celiac gluten sensitivity exists in the way that a lot of people think it exists. Now, I know, I'm going to get emails from people saying, David, I'm allergic to gluten. I eat the bread. I have a problem. I've been tested for celiac. I don't have celiac, but I have a gluten allergy or insensitivity. We have this phenomenon where there are people who report symptoms with gluten and or wheat. They test negative for celiac. They have no wheat allergy. Could be bloating, abdominal pain, other symptoms. Double-blind, placebo-controlled studies have shown that those who self-report gluten sensitivity do have GI and extra GI symptoms when exposed to gluten. Many do not when they don't know they are having gluten. So this is a critical thing. In the world, someone has bread and goes, I've got symptoms. In a controlled double-blind test where people are given capsules that might have gluten or not, a lot of the people who claim the gluten sensitivity do not have it. Some people do. Some people do. It's still being studied, but pointing to so-called gluten allergy or gluten sensitivity when the scientific community does not have a consensus on what that even is or the degree that exists. It could be a FODMAP sensitivity, could be something else. To start wrapping that up with glyphosate and this and that, it doesn't really make any sense. Claim 5 that RFK makes is one you hear a lot on TikTok and on Instagram. You know, I go to Europe and I eat spaghetti or I eat bread and I'm fine. I don't feel like I do in the US. Sometimes I even lose weight. I go there, I eat spaghetti, I eat bread, and I come back to the US and I have lost weight. This happens to me everywhere. I go to Europe, I have croissants and heavy French food. I go to Argentina, I'm having 2 mini croissants with my breakfast coffee every day. Somehow I'm losing weight. It's ascribed to something about the flour, but the reality is that when people travel, you're way more likely to walk way more while on vacation. You often eat less, even if you perceive you're having these heavy meals. I'm having bread, I'm having pasta, I'm having heavy French food. For myself, for example, I do those things, but I have no mid-morning snack. When I'm here in the studio, I have breakfast at 7. But before lunch, I'm hungry. I'll have a small bowl of nuts and berries. I skip that on vacation. So this is the case for a lot of people. There's no solid scientific evidence that European wheat is inherently healthier than US wheat, and that's why people lose weight or feel better. They often lose weight and feel better because they're walking around a lot more and not stressed by work. And then finally, claim number 6 that RFK makes is that high fructose corn syrup is responsible for obesity and diabetes. High fructose corn syrup is strongly associated with obesity and metabolic disorders when you consume too much of it. It's a major source of added sugar. It's present in processed foods and ultra-processed foods. I avoid it. Excessive intake isn't good. That being said, high fructose corn syrup is not the sole cause of those conditions. Diet, lifestyle, people who eat a lot of high fructose corn syrup are usually consuming too many calories. Their diets in general aren't very healthy. So this guy, as Trump's health guru, it scares me. It scares me because he spreads so much disinformation. I know there are people in the audience who agree with everything he said. I would just encourage you, fact check me, research every single one of the claims. Yesterday, we saw an absolutely terrifying scene at what was supposed to be a Trump town hall rally in Oaks, Pennsylvania. After answering just a couple of questions amid multiple medical emergencies in the crowd, Donald Trump simply stood on stage for nearly 40 minutes as music played, doing nothing but swaying, looking disoriented, and sometimes acting like he was conducting the music. The event co-host was Republican Governor Kristi Noem. She was treating Trump like nurses at a memory unit for patients with Alzheimer's will treat their patients, gently reminding Trump what's going on and what he's supposed to be doing. The audience was at times bored, at other times visibly concerned and confused about why this was happening. Here is Trump attempting to wrap up the town hall after just a few questions. He said he was going to take more questions. Then he raps, music plays, Trump stands around looking confused. I've never seen anything like this.
Open, that feels good.
It does.
I feel it right now. I don't know who's out there trying to get in, but you know what I feel? Doesn't that feel nice?
Yes.
And you don't even have, there's nothing like outdoors. You don't even have the cost of an air conditioner if they have them in this beautiful factory. Anyway, go ahead, please.
Yep. Well, sir, do you want to play your song and then greet a few people, or do you want to?
Trump says, what song? He had just mentioned he wanted to play a song.
Well, you had said you wanted to close with a specific song.
Okay,
or we
let's
can
do a
take
couple of
few more
mine.
fast questions.
So, Justin, how about a couple of really beauties, and we'll sit down, relax. Let me just give you the bottom line, though.
So then Trump ranting a little bit more before they go on to the next song, which is just absolutely bizarre. Trump then standing on stage as songs play and doing that thing where he hinges at the waist and leans forward, looking extraordinarily confused.
Le finestre mostra tutto il mio cuore che è acceso. Chiudi dentro me la luce che ho incontrato per strada.
I know you might think, well, there must be something missing here, David, from like what you're showing me. Something else might be going on. No, I mean, this went on for 40 minutes. It doesn't make any sense, but it's what Trump did at the rally. Here's more. All right, so Guns N' Roses, I'm sure not pleased with Trump's music being used. Then Trump conducting during a classic funeral song, which maybe is emblematic and metaphorical for what's going on with Trump's campaign. I don't know.
Go and vote. Let me hear that music, please.
Everyone, let's thank President Trump.
Nice and loud.
God bless you. Let's send President Trump back to the White House.
Imagine standing in line for however many hours you do it, and then Trump plays 40 minutes of music. They get to Hallelujah. Trump says no one is leaving, but widespread reports about people heading for the hills.
Thank you.
Nobody's leaving. What's going on? There's nobody leaving. Keep going. Keep going. Should we keep going? All right, turn that music up. Turn it up. Great song.
It goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall.
All right, genuinely difficult to watch. Genuinely difficult to watch. Kamala Harris tweeting in response to this with the video, hope he's okay. Hope he's okay. Sending well wishes. And then finally, one more video here in which Trump has been standing on stage awkwardly for 20 minutes instead of answering questions. Truly one of the strangest rallies ever, and again raising questions about Donald Trump's mental fitness. Kamala Harris not only tweeting about it, but she played one of these gaffe reels at a rally in Pennsylvania. Let me discuss. Dueling Trump-Harris rallies in Pennsylvania yesterday. Kamala Harris speaking in Erie, Pennsylvania, dropping the hammer and straight up playing for the crowd one of these dementia reels where Trump confusedly says horrifying authoritarian things. The crowd stunned. I think it makes sense to do this. Trump tries to do it to others. He did it to Biden. We've got the video. Kamala Harris might as well use it.
He is someone who will stop at nothing to claim power for himself. And you don't have to take my word for it. I've said for a while now, watch his rallies. Listen to his words. He tells us who he is. And he tells us what he would do if he is elected president. So here tonight, I will show you one example.
Show us.
Of Donald Trump's worldview and intentions. Please roll the clip.
The worst people are the enemies from within. The enemy from within. Those people are more dangerous, the enemy from within, than Russia and China. These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges and our justices. Now, if you had one really violent day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
So you heard his words.
I think this is super smart, but it's really smart in order to activate voters already on your side. I don't think playing that video at a Harris rally where you've got an audience that already supports you. Yes, the rallies are streamed, but overwhelmingly the people watching Harris rallies are also likely supporting Kamala Harris. I don't think it's going to make someone say, whoa, I just saw a video at a Kamala rally and I've switched from Trump to Harris. I don't think that will happen. What I do think the effect of playing these videos can be is making sure that people leaning Harris recognize the importance of going out to vote and making damn well sure that they have a plan to vote and that they do vote. I think that's the value. Good for Kamala Harris for doing it. Did you know there is only one VPN fully optimized for streaming 4K video and downloading large files? That's our sponsor, Private Internet Access. A VPN hides your IP address, allows you to make it look like your device is anywhere in the world. So this lets you stream content on Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max, not normally available in your home country. For instance, the show Friends is not available on Netflix in the US, but when I change my IP address to the UK, I can watch Friends on Netflix and a ton of other awesome content I would otherwise miss out on without lag and without buffering. Private internet access is also faster than other VPNs for file sharing, so you can download anonymously, but without the long wait times. Anyone can use private internet access. Just turn it on once and forget about it. No special knowledge required. And you can use it on all of your devices, TV, phone, tablet, computer. Private internet access is giving my audience 83% off, which comes out to just $203 a month, plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is in the description. All right, let's discuss. Could you steal an American presidential election? And if you wanted to do it, how would you do it? This, of course, is in the context that Donald Trump says Joe Biden stole the 2020 election, while in reality, it is Donald Trump who tried to steal it. We're going to look at Joe Biden's win. We'll look at Donald Trump's claims about what Biden supposedly did. We'll look at Donald Trump's failed attempt to steal 2020. And then maybe most importantly, could a presidential election be stolen? What could Trump try this year if that's what he wanted to do, which I think is obvious that he does want to do. So let's start with the facts. Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election by more than 7 million votes in the popular vote and secured more than 300 electoral votes. Trump and his supporters insist that Trump really won. There was voter fraud. But of course, every major investigation has shown that Joe Biden's win was legitimate. There was no credible evidence to suggest large-scale fraud or manipulation. States with close results like Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania recounted ballots both by hand and machine and found no issues that would have altered the outcome. The U.S. Department of Justice, under Trump's own Attorney General Bill Barr, investigated allegations of fraud and concluded there was no evidence of widespread fraud that could have changed the election results in even a single state. Dozens of lawsuits were dismissed for lack of evidence. Trump's legal team and allies filed over 60 lawsuits in multiple states trying to overturn the results. The vast majority were dismissed by judges for lack of evidence. Trump likes to claim these were only dismissed for standing, but that isn't true. In many cases, it was Trump-appointed judges rejecting these lawsuits, really undercutting the claim that a Biden-controlled or influenced judiciary had it in for Trump. The Supreme Court, with a 6-3 conservative majority, refused to hear cases aimed at overthrowing the election, signaling that even Trump-friendly justices found the challenges baseless. Audits and recounts reaffirmed the results. In Georgia, where Biden won by about 12,000 votes, the state conducted a full hand recount of all ballots, and the recount confirmed Joe Biden's victory. Arizona's controversial audit, carried out by a pro-Trump group, ultimately found even more votes for Biden than initially counted, reinforcing that Biden really did win. Election officials, including many Republicans, testified under oath that the election was free, fair, and secure, and claims of widespread fraud just did not materialize under scrutiny. This now brings us to what Trump did to try to become president despite having lost the election. Trump directly pressured election officials in key swing states to alter the certified results. He called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, urging him to find 11,780 votes, just enough to overturn Joe Biden's lead in the state. "I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break," Trump said on that now infamous phone call. In other states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, Trump's allies sought to influence state legislators to decertify election results or appoint alternate electors, hoping to bypass the will of the voters. And Trump's lawyers, led by Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, tried to challenge the election results through these baseless legal arguments, including claims that voting machines were rigged, ballots tampered with, dead people voting in droves. The only thing Rudy was able to accomplish with these hearings was to spread COVID to people when he himself had it. One of Trump's most disturbing tactics was to push for fake electors. His allies tried to submit alternate slates of electors in swing states that Biden won, hoping the electors would be counted on January 6th instead of the legitimate Biden electors. Many people ended up criminally charged for getting involved in this, as they should be. Trump pressured Vice President Pence to reject certified electoral votes during January 6th's joint session of Congress, which would have effectively nullified the election. And when Pence refused, saying he doesn't have the constitutional authority to overturn the election, Trump turned to his base and incited them to take action on January 6th. Of course, we now know that Trump's months of false claims about a stolen election culminated in the violent attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. His supporters, having been fed lies about the rigged election, stormed the Capitol in an attempt to stop the certification of Biden's win. So now I want to talk about the ways that Trump claimed Biden stole it and explain why these are both untrue but silly ways to try to steal an election if that's what you wanted to do. Trump and his allies claim that dead people cast ballots in large numbers during the 2020 election. Now, in reality, voter rolls are regularly updated. Instances of deceased people being sent ballots are rare and flagged. And remember that just because you send a deceased person a ballot, because the records haven't yet been updated that they are deceased, as long as they don't vote, which obviously they don't because they're dead, or no one else fills out their ballot and sends it in, there's not really an issue other than a clerical one. Any isolated cases of votes cast in the name of deceased people were investigated, found to have no impact on the overall results. And these cases, as I said, are just clerical errors that get fixed when caught. Trump's legal team claimed that voting machines, especially those made by Dominion voting systems, were rigged to switch votes from Trump to Biden. Independent audits and reviews in multiple states of the machines found no evidence of this, and Dominion ultimately filed multiple defamation lawsuits against individuals and media outlets that promoted these nonsense claims. Courts found no basis for the allegations. Major networks have since issued retractions or settlements regarding the false reporting. Voting machines are tested, audited, certified before being used. They're subject to multiple layers of security, and the idea that widespread machine manipulation could have gone undetected is implausible. Another claim from Trump's camp was large numbers of non-citizens voted illegally in 2020, skewing the results for Biden. However, voter registration systems, including in states with strong voter ID laws, are designed to prevent non-citizens from voting. In addition to this, even if you could prove that non-citizens were voting. You would then have to demonstrate that it favored one candidate or the other. And of course, there's no evidence of that either, because there's no evidence of any of it. Investigations into claims of illegal voting by non-citizens found no evidence that it's happening on any scale that would affect even a single state. The notion of millions of illegal votes cast by undocumented immigrants is baseless, and it is a talking point meant to stoke fear. Illegal voting is rare, and even when it occurs, it is often caught and prosecuted, and it is at least 50% of the time committed by Republicans. I won't say almost all the time. We'll just say at least 50% of the time. So now we get to real ways we should actually be worried somebody could steal an election. Election subversion through key positions. And what you'll notice is that Donald Trump is already doing or planning to do most of these things. One of the most realistic ways to steal an election is controlling key positions in the electoral process. If Trump or his allies were to install loyalists in positions like secretaries of state or election boards, they could refuse to certify legitimate results, creating chaos. This could happen in swing states where a small margin would decide the winner of the state. And if officials loyal to Trump refuse to certify a Biden win, it could throw the election process into doubt, especially if courts don't act quickly. Trump is already succeeding in getting loyalists appointed at local election boards in many states. He's already doing it. Number two, legislative manipulation. Another pathway is through state legislatures. Some swing states have Republican-controlled legislatures that could potentially pass laws letting them override the popular vote and appoint their own electors. This would exploit ambiguity in election law. It would rely on courts to decide, is this legislature's claim legitimate about supposed fraud, even if there's no evidence? And they're trying this in Georgia already. I reported to you several weeks ago that there is a change to election law in Georgia that lets what are not normally just perfunctory approvals of a precinct or county's vote count. It allows the people in those positions to say, I think there's something wrong here, unprecedented and dangerous. Number three, Supreme Court decisions. A Supreme Court ruling on election law could open the door for legal maneuvers that weaken the electoral process. For example, if the court were to rule in favor of limiting mail-in voting or upholding a restrictive voter ID law that disproportionately affects one group versus another, that could impact results. Conservative justices on the court have already signaled a willingness to reinterpret certain aspects of election law, like the independent state legislature theory, which would give state legislatures way more power over election rules. And of course, we have a very conservative Supreme Court, 3 justices nominated by Trump himself. Number 4, voter suppression. Voter suppression like limiting early voting, restricting mail-in ballots, purging voter rolls, implementing strict voter ID. These actions disproportionately impact communities that tend to vote more for Democrats than Republicans. And these laws make it more difficult for certain groups, usually it's minority, low income, and elderly voters, makes it more difficult for certain groups to cast ballots. And if you can depress turnout strategically in key areas with these tactics, you could tip the scales of a state. You'll notice that the Republican Party and Trump specifically have been working on this for years as it is. And number 5, disinformation and chaos. Spread disinformation, spread false claims about voting procedures, fraud, candidate legitimacy, confuse voters, reduce turnout. And these are efforts designed just to make people distrust the system and say, I might stay home, or I got the wrong voting day, or I got the wrong information about whether I need an ID or where to vote or whatever. By creating enough doubt in the outcome, bad actors can force a situation where election officials halt certification or the public even demands a redo because of the chaos that was caused. So as you can see here, the real threat to American democracy and the real opportunity to steal an election, it's not from mythical voter fraud that Trump and his allies claim. It's not from messing with voting machines or anything like that. It's from the exploitation of loopholes, voter suppression, and manipulating the electoral process, and Trump is already doing most of the stuff I mentioned. If you make a concerted effort to subvert the election system through these mechanisms, you could, in theory, overturn the will of the voters. So it's crucial that Americans remain vigilant and ensure that democratic norms are upheld. But most importantly, with such little time to go, our best bet, dare I say, our only bet, is to overwhelm the vote to get such a massive victory that none of this stuff would work. It's up to us to make it happen. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. In one of the most pathetic moments of the 2024 presidential campaign, J.D. Vance asked again and again and again about who won the 2020 election, refuses to answer, but also seems to say that it would be acceptable to throw out democracy because people weren't allowed to see Hunter Biden's penis on Twitter. I know it's completely nuts in every single way, but we're dealing with people who are cuckoo. Take a listen to this.
In the debate, you were asked to clarify if you believe Trump lost the 2020 election.
Right.
Do you believe he lost the 2020 election?
I think that Donald Trump and I have both raised a number of issues with the 2020 election, but we're focused on the future. I think there's an obsession here with focusing on 2020. I'm much more worried about what happened after
First non-answer.
2020, which is a wide open border, groceries that are unaffordable. And look,
Senator, yes or no?
Okay.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which independent analysis have said cost Donald Trump millions of votes?
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story that independent studies have suggested would have cost Trump millions of votes?
Senator
I think that's
Vance,
the question.
I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
And I've answered your question with another question. You answer my question and I'll answer yours.
I have asked.
Hilariously, it's like, okay, she's the journalist. He's the candidate. She asked a question and he says, well, I answered your question with another question. You answer mine and then I'll answer yours. But of course, she's the one supposed to be answering the questions. And also, why does she have to first answer? Why won't he answer first? And then maybe she'll answer the other question. This is not exactly a profile in courage.
This question repeatedly. It is something that is very important for the American people to know. There is no proof, legal or otherwise, that Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election.
You're repeating a slogan rather than engaging with what I'm saying, which is that when our own technology firms engage in industrial scale censorship, by the way, backed up by the federal government, in a way that independent studies suggest affect the votes, I'm worried about Americans who feel like there were problems in 2020. I'm not worried about this slogan that people throw. Well, every court case went this way. I'm talking about something very discrete. A problem of censorship in this country that I do think affected things in 2020, and more importantly, that led to Kamala Harris's governance, which has screwed this country up in a big way.
They insist that if more people were allowed to see sexually explicit images of Hunter Biden, including his, right, that they would have said, well, now I'm voting Trump. Now, they cite these polls that generically say from people after the fact, I would have voted differently had that story not been censored. But there are three critical things you have to understand about that. People's later retrospective assessment of what they would have done differently is not particularly accurate because they don't even remember how they were feeling or what they were thinking at that time. You might think you do, but our memory is not very good. Number two, implicit in all of this is that voting differently would have meant switching votes from Joe Biden to Donald Trump. That's also not a guarantee. And number three, they want to insist that it's not because of seeing Hunter Biden's penis that we would have voted differently. It's because the story would have exposed the Hunter Biden laptop story if it had been allowed on Twitter. If it didn't violate the terms and conditions on Twitter, it would have exposed Biden family corruption, the bribery scandal, et cetera. It didn't do anything of the sort. It simply did not do that. So on three levels, this refrain that they have about how if only that story hadn't been censored, Biden would have lost and Trump would have won, is predicated on false notions, lies, distortions, and on some core level, the belief that if more people saw the of Hunter Biden, they would have switched their vote from Biden to Trump, which is very stupid. Imagine being like, hey, you know what? Doug Emhoff has a strange looking penis. I'm voting for Trump right now. Like, imagine how stupid that would be. Now, I know many of you are probably saying, David, there's a lot of stupid voters out there. And I don't want to understate that. Yes, there are. Yes, there are. But this entire story is primarily pathetic because he simply won't answer whether Joe Biden actually won the 2020 election. J.D. Vance is affirming he would violate his oath to the Constitution were he placed in the same role as Mike Pence was in 2020. And he is convinced that seeing Hunter Biden's penis would have made Donald Trump president in 2020. Wacky, wacky stuff. A disgusting Donald Trump says that he would force it down Gavin's throat in a completely bonkers rally at Coachella, California. They always talk about Kamala's bussing people in. As I said last week during my appearance with Sean Kelly on the Digital Social Hour, providing transportation to rallies isn't really the big win that these people seem to think it is. However, such chaos with transportation to and from the Trump Coachella rally, that absolute bedlam breaking out as people were unable to get the hell out of there. The video and the audio are completely whacked. Here is Trump threatening to withhold aid to California, talking about forcing it down Gavin's throat. My God, this guy is out of his gourd.
We're going to take care of our farmers. We're going to take care of your water situation. And we'll force it down his throat. And we'll say, Gavin, if you don't do it, we're not giving you any of that fire money that we send you all the time for all the forest fires that you have.
Trump speaking. And by the way, the video at Trump rallies has been wacky for a while now because he speaks from inside this thick glass box. So there's all this. You either have to film him from the side, which just looks weird, or if you film from the front, the glass is very reflective. It's just a mess. The audio also a disaster at this rally for reasons we haven't fully been able to determine. And Trump just insisting about forcing it down Gavin's throat. It's just ridiculous. Trump also with a savior complex, saying he will rescue California and all of the invaded and conquered towns. I seem to have missed the stories of conquest in Joe Biden's America.
We're going to liberate our country from criminals. How stupid are we? How stupid are these leaders? They're stupid people. I will rescue California and every town across America that's been invaded and conquered.
Trump will come in and take the conquerors out, sort of an anti-colonial message, as luck would have it. And then Trump, as is always the case, glitching very badly, saying that we will quickly deplete.
I will very quickly deplete. We are going to take inflation and we are going to deflate it.
We will deflate inflation with deflate. He's just not fit. Okay. He's just not fit for this. He can't handle it. All right. We need someone younger. We need someone more fit. That's all it is. It's okay to acknowledge it. Trump insisting that Kamala Harris has not gone to North Carolina. As he said this, she was in North Carolina.
But he's a great guy and he's done a great job. And it's too bad that Kamala didn't do. I don't even know. She's essentially not even gone there.
Essentially not, other than the fact that she's there as Trump speaks. Trump also lying and saying that there are blackouts and brownouts in California all the time. The crowd is silent because they know it's not true.
Isn't it crazy? You guys, you have brownouts, blackouts. California has brownouts and blackouts every weekend, every day. And now he says, let's go all electric cars.
You could really hear a pin drop in there as people look at each other and go, I have no blackouts or brownouts. Do you? And everybody's like, no, I don't have them. Just not a problem. And then finally, the crude transphobia comes out. And the biggest applause lines, consistently, the biggest applause lines at a Trump rally is the overt transphobia.
And we will get critical race theory and transgender insanity the hell out of our school. And we will keep men out of women's sports. Men out of women's sports.
Maybe the biggest applause line of the rally. We will keep men out of women's sports. And then on the economic front, Donald Trump fabricating out of thin air the completely made up claim that Kamala Harris's tax plan will raise taxes on families by $3,000 a year. Remember, of course, that Donald Trump's blanket tariffs on China will raise costs for families by thousands of dollars a year.
Where they say we're going to raise your taxes, vote for me, I'm going to raise your taxes like by 72% or something. And they're going to end the Trump tax cuts. I gave you the largest tax cuts in the history of our country, larger than the Reagan tax cuts. They're going to end them. Add that to it. Her plan will raise taxes for the typical American family by more than $3,000 a year.
That is absolutely untrue. And if anybody wants to sit down and take a serious look at what Trump is proposing, the tariffs, mass deportations, the costs associated with it, and the hit to labor as a result of doing all of those deportations, if you look at all of it, you can't help but say, wait a second, this is going to cost a lot of money, not bring in any new revenue, and be a disaster for the economy. And you know what? When economists look at it, that's what they come up with. Obviously, Kamala's economists say what Trump's going to do is bad. Obviously, Trump's economists say what Trump is going to do is good. You know, I got an email saying, David, you claim to respect economists, but Peter Navarro is an economist, and he says Trump's plan would be good. Look at economists not associated with these campaigns. Look at academic economists. Oh, but academics just lean left. Look at their inputs and look at their outputs and argue with the logic. Yes, every economist probably votes for someone, but we can't discount everything they say on that basis. Look at what economists say. Trump's entire economic program would be a disaster, and we'll dig into that more probably on the Thursday show, I think. We've got a great bonus show for you today. A Las Vegas man is now threatening to sue authorities over Donald Trump's assassination attempt claim. We'll also talk about a leaked memo that is a major red flag for Ted Cruz and his hopes of getting reelected senator. And finally, we might see Kamala Harris and Donald Trump separately join Joe Rogan for an interview in the final weeks of this campaign. What would that be like? I think it'd be different if Kamala does it than if Trump does it. We will see all of it on the bonus show. Make sure you're signed up at joinpacman.com and make sure you've pre-ordered my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, a proof copy of which I'm holding here. Go to davidpacman.com/echo or Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, anywhere that books, audiobooks, and ebooks are sold. I'll have an update on pre-order numbers for you, I believe, tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. If you use a VPN to stream or download content, you're probably used to long wait times, lots of loading and buffering. Unless you use private internet access, the only VPN set up for streaming and downloading 4K content without any lag. A VPN hides your IP address, allowing you to access content not available in your region, letting you anonymize your IP address so governments and big tech can't track what you do online. And you can protect unlimited devices with just one account, Private internet access is giving my audience 83% off, which is just $203 a month, plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is down below. If you snore at night or you get hot when you sleep, check out our sponsor 8 Sleep, who just released the Pod 4 Ultra. It can cool your bed down to 20 degrees below the room temperature so you get better sleep, or it can heat your bed up, and it can sense when you're snoring and lift your head so you can breathe better. It's truly amazing. I use an 8 Sleep pod every night. Once you try it, you'll understand how big of a difference it makes for sleep. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman and use code Pacman for $350 off. The link is in the description.